forward. Live from Banjul, this is the News File. We now explore a major convergence bringing youth leaders and influencers from across Africa for a major summit in Banjul. It's all courtesy of the Pan-African Youth Leadership Foundation, an all-inclusive youth platform that seeks to represent and realize the aspirations of millions of African youth via education and development of vital skills. Now moving to become a pace setter in youth development affairs, the Pan-African Youth Leadership Foundation aims to be the single largest youth body on the continent by 2022. Driven via European collaboration, the youth conference themed on Not Too Young to Lead joins a roving scheme of moving to galvanize influencers, youth leaders, organizations, civil society, and potential investors from both continents to amplify leadership. To amplify leadership capacities and development opportunities for young people. Here's a piece of the day's activities. Take a listen. Well, well, to expand on that conversation, of course, we have two gentlemen in our studios. We have Francis Ben Kaifala. He is a commissioner of Anti-Corruption Commission of Sierra Leone. And, of course, we have our very own Babukar Kebe, who is the president.
The CEO
Chief Executive Officer, of course, a young person. The gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the News File, and, of course, by extension, to GRTS.
Good evening.
Now, of course, we do know Paylef, that's the Pan-African Youth Leadership Organization, moves to encourage youth leadership and decision-making. Now, why is leadership essential in the development of young people?
Because I believe leadership is where the decisions are taken, is where the implementations take place, is where the policies are developed. Therefore, if young people have to also be part of leading the country, taking leadership roles is really vital to moving the country forward, and that is where really the fulcrum is for changing things, for development and for change.
Quite interesting. For development and for change, youth have to be there in the center of that table, the decision-making table. Babukar Kebe.
Yes, I think it's crucial, like my colleague here said. If you remember back days in the Gambia, we championed the campaign of Not Too Young to Run. And we have to realize that that have actually paid dividend. And one of the outcome was we were able to get one of the youngest parliamentarians from that campaign. And today, that replica, really inspired a lot of councils within the National Assembly and local government elections. And we have needs almost 10% of the National Assembly parliamentarians become young people. And again, if you go to the councils, the regional councils, you see that almost over 25% of their councillors are almost young people. So this shows that the leadership of Africa really have to be taken forward by young people, and we cannot just take the back seat and always complain to be given the opportunity. Yeah. We really have to be there to really, amplify change, the change that we want for Africa.
We cannot always take the back seat. I like that, but I'm sure we will further expand that also. But now, in 2015, young people in Africa constituted about 19% of the global youth population. Now, that number faces immense challenges from jobs to politics to education. What sort of hope do multilateral efforts like this signify for young people?
I think it brings that synergy and inspiration. We draw what is happening in other countries. We develop on the experiences of other people. We also share ideas and pool ideas and resources together to be able to move youth activities, young people involvement in governance, in leadership, in development strides, and generally in moving their countries forward. So multilateralism is where the world is going and where the world is, and being in isolation, like my brother here in Gambia, they are doing a lot. But now he's sitting side by side me, and I can give him the experience of Sierra Leone. And we have people coming from Spain, people coming from Bulgaria, people coming from other parts of the world. So it's really good. Those experiences can bring, like they said, more heads, better ideas. That's basically the idea behind
but now we know that the summit looks to engage and encourage skills as a practical means to expand gainful knowledge. How will the learning of new skills and expertise, you pen the youth dilemma in terms of jobs and migration? Maybe I will allow our Gambian colleague to harp on that.
I think it's for us as a country, it's critical. looking at the unemployment rate of the country, have gone up to 41.5%. And I think skills is the way forward now, is what we need. We look at other services that we are giving out in terms of constructions, in terms of carpentry, technology. We always hiring out experts and all that. And I think the government of the Gambia have done very well in terms of bringing, launching the national skills sector committee, hosted by the Minister of Higher Education, where we now looking at even bringing apprenticeship and formalizing apprenticeship. Now what they're doing right now is to bring craftsmen as master craftsmen to really train these young people to be certified and get the required skills to be able to be architects, to be able to be carpenters, engineers, to really reduce the number of experts that Gambia is importing to really develop this country. So I think the summit is, the team is up, but again the different areas that we are looking at is also very critical, especially for Gambia and as we speak at the moment.
Yes, quite interesting. Of course, when we look at the theme, not too young to run, but then again, look at a lot of African countries, we have the composition of their government, you hardly see young people there. And of course, the Gambia is not an exception. Now, the notion of inexperience always come to play. It overshadows the debate. Now, how can this conference aim to topple that idea and encourage youth to engage in decision making?
Well, I can say that the narrative around youth participation in governance is changing. In many countries, you have young people holding vital positions. In Sierra Leone, for example, in my country, we have a president who believes in youth, and he has appointed young people in really important positions, ministerial positions, departments as agency. I had one of the most important institutions in the country, the Anti-Corruption Agency. Yes, leading over 300 staff to fight corruption, and the entire country focuses on that, sometimes even more than other parts of the world. So the narrative is changing, and that is why we are bringing people together. We share from these experiences, but to make sure that countries that are lagging behind can believe in youth, because the delivery from those of us who have now, the Bible says, for example, when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. Those of us who have occupied these positions and are doing our way to move our countries forward are joining our brothers so that we can send the message across. That is why, in fact, I am sitting down here to speak to the Gambian people, for them to see that young people can occupy such positions and be capable of doing things. And if you follow the work we are doing in different countries, you will see that young people are doing remarkably well. So the narrative has to change. And countries like Gambia, Liberia, Guinea, everywhere in Africa have to know that young people can do it, and the time is now.
Good. Young people can do it, and the time is now. Now, tell us about this European partnership. What can Africa learn from Europe's example?
I think Africa has to understand that, for example, the Europeans have united. They have the OECD countries, but they have also the European EC, the Economic Community, which is doing very well. It shows the strength of unity. It shows that borders are what are keeping us apart. We have to remove those artificial barriers for us to be able to have a bigger market, to have a bigger pool of ideas, to be able to move our resources across borders, and to develop the continent well. So Europe has a lot for us to tap from. Similarly, they too have a lot to learn from us, but the unity that they are showing, the sense of purpose that they are showing, the sense of direction that they are showing is what really Africa has to look to and try to remove the individualism that is happening in Africa, for us to know that if we come together, we are stronger and better together, and it will be more difficult to defeat.
And just to add, there's more to, and believe in ourselves as well, that we can do it definitely without even support from elsewhere.
Of course, and I think that's actually going to be the future, Africa to develop its, by its own.
Absolutely.
I think that's the future, but the look of the African young people is really promising. But on the other side also, we're talking of a staggering figure of 10 to 15 million young people that join Africa's job market every year. What prospects and challenges does this present for the continent, which has the largest youth population in the world?
I think the recently launched Africa Free Trade Agreement is an opportunity for us as Africans to really remove the artificial barriers that we're talking about. But again, it's a leverage for Europe to really come back and invest, and not to only import the raw materials. But I think the forum actually highlights how Europe could really exchange expertise and really transfer knowledge and skills to Africans to really develop, instead of just getting the raw materials and transport it or exporting it from their countries. But again, that's one way that we can really address unemployment. And the 15 million that are graduating or coming to the job market every year, I think entrepreneurship skills is actually the way forward for African governments, for private sectors to really look at and reflect critically. Also, come up with deliberate policies that actually looked at youth issues and address them critically. I think that we have leaders that only come. Again, somebody mentioned that we need to have visionary leaders. But the visionary leaders that also don't allow the system to really corrupt them, but let them work against the system to come up with a new way of really, maneuvering those way of traditional way of getting things done.
Exactly.
And I think that's critical.
Yeah, Mr. Kevin, but I just want to wrap up with these questions before Fatu also has something to say. We're talking about skills and young people. Now, to be honest, most African young people look at white-collar jobs as a way out for employment. What do you have to say to some of those young people who are watching this live news file on GRTS to take up other skills employment jobs?
I think the narrative and then the behavioral change is changing. I work as a chamber and we deal with young people. And when we look at them, we're trying to bring some successful stories. We've just launched yesterday the Tech program for Gambia. And again, you see young people who have started from scratch. Today they're making a lot of money.
Exactly.
They don't even, some of them, I even see some civil servants working on government.
Exactly.
Really rely on those people for some favors and all that. I think it's high time that the Gambia, we take things seriously as young people. And then the white-collar jobs, we're waiting for salary. The poorest person in this earth is the one that only waits for monthly salary.
Oh my God.
Seriously. The person, the entrepreneur that gets every day multiple times of money is way bigger and more prosperous than the person that only sits. We put on our suit sometimes to inspire, but in reality, the amount of life and the ways the person really change as an entrepreneur is way bigger than the civil servant sitting inside the office.
Wow.
We all know that. I think that's a changing point for all of us as young people. If you're watching, I think it's time that we start, do the last minute thing and then make it in the
Get it done. Mr. Kaifala, maybe you just have a few seconds to
finally, yes, and the way forward.
Before you close the program for the way forward.
Yes, I would just encourage the leadership in the Gambia and in other parts of Africa to believe in young people. We have ideas, we have the energy, we have the time on our hands to do things that can produce wonders for countries. And let us believe in youth. And I believe, speaking on behalf of all young people of Africa, including those in Gambia, that if given the opportunity, Archimedes once said that give me a terra firma and I'll move the earth. If you give us a strong position for us to stand from, we'll be able to move our countries better. And I'm encouraging all African leaders to believe in young people to be able to produce this. And I'm also encouraging the young people, on the other hand, when the opportunity comes, do not waste it. Because you are like an ambassador representing the generations behind you, people who are also there to take. If you mess it up, it's easy for them to point to say, oh yes, we gave a young man this, look at what he did. But if you do it well, you open room for other people to follow. So let young people also be able to produce the results once they are given responsibility. But I have immense faith in Africa. I have immense faith in young people. And I believe it is the time for us to now give young people the chance. And we should in the Gambia.
It is now time for us to give young people the chance. Fatu, I think that's a quite interesting wrap-up statement.
Definitely, Modu Njai. It was a pleasure having the two gentlemen in our studios. Of course, Francis Ben Kaifala, a commissioner from the Anti-Corruption Commission of Sierra Leone, as well as our very own Babukar Kebe, Chief Executive Officer of Gambia Youth Chamber of Commerce. Good to have you in our studios.
Thank you very much.